Man, welcome to another episode of Food and Laughter. We have our host, Terrance Gawith, and our special host today, Heather Jones. I am so excited, man, that we got Heather on board. And today we are eating Alvarado's. We got the super loaded fries. Is that what they call the loaded fries?
The super fries.
Super fries, and we got the mini steak tacos, man, and we are about to get our grub on. But before we do all that, let's welcome our special guest today, Serenity Dougherty.
Yeah.
From Lincoln, everybody, give it up. Give it up.
From Lincoln.
So,
All right, so we put the plates out and dig in because we all just been waiting.
ladies first, so I
ladies
want you to
first.
get digging in.
Polite stuff.
So as you digging in, I gotta ask you, I always like the kitchen right when they're like,
I'm gonna let him ask in while I dig in too.
so Serenity, how long have you been doing comedy?
13 years.
13 years, wow.
Those are good fries.
Consistent 13 years?
Yeah,
Yeah?
yep.
All right, man, 13, that's a lot. I mean, you know, I told you, we talked earlier, like 20 years, 13 years, that means you have been on the grind, hitting the pavement, doing what you do.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Do you love what you do?
Absolutely,
That's
yes.
the
Yeah,
hope.
I love comedy.
Thank you, thank you.
So in the 13 years, where all have you been? Has it just been Lincoln? You do Lincoln, Omaha, the tri-state area?
yeah,
Tell us
it's-
a little bit about that.
Mostly Lincoln and Omaha, but I lived in St. Louis for 2 years, so I did comedy there too. And then my husband, he has lived in Austin, Texas, and Chicago, and he also does comedy. So I've gone and done comedy there while he was living there. We did some long distance during our marriage so that I could finish my undergraduate degree. And then I've also done comedy in Ireland. I did a study abroad over a summer, and I performed at some comedy clubs in Ireland. That was really cool. So yeah.
Awesome.
I
That
did
is
not
really
know
cool.
that.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
did I not know you were in Ireland? For that, that is amazing.
I know it was
I don't
when I
feel
was
bad
in
'cause I didn't know
Missouri,
you like
so
cheating.
Oh,
yeah.
gotcha.
So you weren't, we weren't seeing each other when that happened.
Now, before you go any further, because you said a lot, with them, like you already got a lot, like you and your husband both do comedy. Like, what is that like? Like a dual,
it's
like,
great.
have you ever like do like a dual
Oh,
comedy
absolutely, yes, absolutely.
team? Sweet.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's really great.
I wish.
I've never seen a more functional comedy couple.
Then
Like
Will
that's
and
the
I,
thing. Like
that's
most
true.
comics can't handle another comic, but you and Will are like
That's what I was gonna say, right?
just
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Like, because
And both hilarious.
Yeah.
And that's
That is
usually
nice.
comics, like, because y'all know, like, usually comics
Right.
gotta out funny one another. Like, it
Yep,
has
yep,
to be.
yep.
Right? You just can't shut it off. So, how do you guys navigate that? Do you guys?
I think we recognize that there's going to be like ebb and flow in both of our careers and trajectories, and we do different things beyond comedy too, so that helps. But honestly, I love him and can't get enough of him. So getting to be like at the open
All right,
mics
we
together.
gotta keep this clean, though. I don't
Oh
want to
yeah, yeah.
get
you know.
X-rated or nothing.
Yeah, we've done roast battles against each other before.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah, the last.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
No,
go
no.
ahead.
Tell me.
I was gonna say, who's the funniest between you two?
Yeah, that's a good question. I personally, I would say Will, but
You can't say that on the camera like that. You're supposed to say you.
no, like here's the thing. Will is Will's amazing, and he's wanted to be a comedian since he was 6 years old. He's like really dedicated to it. He heard Carlin on the radio when he was 6 and was like, "That's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life." And so, like, his life trajectory has always been comedy, comedy, comedy. And
He's
then,
a funny guy, too.
Yeah, he's hilarious. But I will say though that lately he's been very jealous of me because I've been doing a lot better than him. Oops, sorry. I've been doing a lot better than him.
She got on the show before him.
Yeah. And so he's definitely been a little bit jealous of that, but not in like it's not causing fights or anything like that, you know.
That's cool.
So
I mean, you
no,
gotta
he's
have
just slowly poisoning you. You don't even know it.
one day she's not gonna be.
Looks like a slot's going to open up in March.
yeah, we
No,
you
you
know.
Who'd you say
Booker,
booked that? Who'd you? Okay, we got it in our contact
That
book,
is
right?
cool, though. I think
He's
that
really
is-
amazing. He's a very supportive partner,
Well,
and
yeah, 'cause he should be, right? Because he's the one person that gets it more than
Yeah.
most, right?
Yeah, well, and I think he's just happy that I am involved because, like you said, there are a lot of comedy couples where like one of them is involved and the other one isn't, or is only kind of, or whatever, and they fight about that sort of stuff because comedy is like, it's like having a mistress, right?
Yeah.
Like if we were not both comedians, then he'd be at open mics multiple nights a week, and I'd be like, "Where are you? I'm lonely," you know. So
It's definitely hard. you know, when you got a spouse, I mean, I don't know, I ain't gonna say my wife don't support me, but it's a lot different, you know. Like you said, you do kind of get them jealous, like he out there with them people laughing at them, girls giggling, and like, girl, it's comedy, you know. But you know, so it's got to be cool that you got your guy with you.
Oh, yeah,
I'm intrigued too. Like, do you find that he's better suited to bounce things off of? Like, I feel like that's got to be an incredible aspect to have, because you essentially have like a writing club inside the house, right?
Yep,
Like,
all the time.
when I bounce jokes off of my wife, she's either like, I don't get it, I hate it, or I think I'm judging you as a person now.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't think you get that same thing.
Oh, you
right?
get to bounce yours off?
No, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, you try to, like, early on, and then you realize,
Bro,
like, this is a fruitless
I
endeavor.
stopped 10 years ago, man. I'm like, never mind, because she's like, you always think you're funny,
Yeah.
and you're not.
I'll
So
get that wild hair where I, for whatever reason, need that like annual or every 3-year reminder.
Right.
Oh yeah, going to my wife is not a good idea.
Right.
Because she hates me now.
Yeah, we bounce ideas off each other a lot.
Super dope.
But like sometimes we have conflict over that, not in like a bad way, but like Will lately has been telling a joke that I told him was terrible and would not work, and so when he tells it now, he'll get on stage and he'll be like, Serenity says I need to stop doing this, but I refuse. It's great. You guys can tell me what you think, you know. So
just throw you underneath the bus, right on stage.
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yep. So that's fine.
So if it go over, you look like the bad person. Huh? But if it don't go over, like, you should have listened to her.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It was terrible.
He just needs to kill his darlings in it. That's really what it is, but he won't do that, you know.
What got you into, like, so Will wanted, he wanted when he was like 6. When did you first realize you wanted to get on stage?
So I had been watching him do open mics for 2 years. I used to go to Duffy's every Monday night and watch all the comedians. And it was the same comedians every Monday night because the comedy scene was a lot smaller back then. And they did the same jokes. And it was a little boring, I'm not gonna lie. But like, you know, I'd been immersed in it, and when we started dating in 2004, one of the first things Will did was bring over a bunch of VHS tapes of like Comedy Central Presents specials he'd taped. And so I got like a full comedy introduction right off the bat when we started dating, and by then he'd been asking me for feedback on stuff for so long that I felt comfortable, like I could do this too. And then he moved to Texas with a couple other Nebraska comics, and I missed him, and I kept going to Duffy's because it was kind of my community at that point. And then was in a class where I started. We had to like observe a community, and then we had to participate in the community and write about it for college class. And so I went from observing comedy to participating in it, and then never stopped.
Nice, you got hooked.
I got to ask you this then. So he pretty much was like your influence in comedy then. So do you think you would have ever did comedy had you not met him, or do you think it was maybe already installed in you, or is it something that just had to be awakened? You know,
that's a good question. I don't know if I would have come to comedy without him. It is possible because like writing is really what I'm passionate about. I just write everything, so it's possible I might have come to stand up. Maybe I would have seen it, but I kind of doubt it. I really don't know.
Did you have a sense of humor, like in like
Oh
in
yeah,
school?
yeah,
So was
yeah.
you like the fun
Oh
girl in
yeah, for
school?
sure.
Yeah, so
yeah.
you probably destined to go.
It's not. I wasn't like completely disinterested. Yeah, I grew up very funny. You know, was the weird kid in class. That's
God's way was saying to put y'all together so you can do comedy.
Yes, yeah.
He works in the mysterious ways.
Yeah.
You was destined to do comedy. That is so cool.
I enjoy it. Yeah, I really
But you're
do.
also, as we were talking kind of behind the scenes, you're also taking this from not just a comedy standpoint. You're taking it from an academic standpoint.
Yes, yep.
I'm kind of interested in hearing a little bit more about that too.
Yeah,
Tell me about that.
Absolutely. I'm doing a PhD program at UNL in rhetoric and composition, which is just like a subfield of English. And my research focus is local stand-up comedy scenes. So I will eventually be writing my dissertation on the Lincoln and Omaha comedy scene. Wow. I also teach the introductory writing course there at UNL. and I make my students write and perform stand-up as part of that course. Yes.
That's nice, man. I would have loved to have something like that back in my
But
day.
I get that a lot.
How long do you give them? Do you give them the standard 5, or is it like 3 minutes because it's a class? And you
Yeah,
kinda
so
choke it?
like initially they have 4 to 5 minutes for they do 3 performances over the course of the semester, and then they do a final performance on top of that, and the final performance is open to the public. Yeah, this last year we did it at Storm Cellar, last semester at
that's
Storm
cool.
Cellar, so they actually got to
That's a
do it
great
at a bar.
venue, too.
Yeah, it is.
That's like a comedy venue, right? Because not only is it a dive, it's downstairs
Yep.
in the
Yep.
basement, kind of gritty. Like, I genuinely love comedy in those types of venues.
It was
We had a good
great.
So that's an
time there, too.
authentic
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, it is. And we packed the room. They brought all their friends and family to come see them do this performance. And you don't get that a lot. You know, when your kid is in college, you don't get to see a lot of the stuff that they actually produce while they're in
Right.
college.
Right.
So I
You
think
just
it's
get a
really
bill.
cool that they had the opportunity to like share some of their work with their family and friends.
Were you surprised by any of their jokes? Like, did anything catch you off guard?
Oh yeah, I mean all the time, all the time.
Live for it.
Yeah, they are very funny. They're really funny.
Or do they have to do clean comedy or just
No.
comedy? Just
No,
do you?
they do whatever they want to do.
Okay.
Yeah, and we
I
talk
would
about it.
definitely love that class.
Yeah, we talk about it. We talk about controversies in comedy and like topics and how you make a decision on whether or not something is off limits or whatever. And also, they workshop their material with each other over the course of the semester. So there's like a lot of revision that goes into it. And I bring in local comedians. They give guest performances at the start of every class.
That's
So,
really cool.
so they get to like connect. They get to see people who are actually doing the kind of writing that they're doing in the classroom. They get to see people who are doing that same writing in the community, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
That is cool,
I think that's a
man.
good bridge between academia and the community.
Has anybody expressed an interest in keeping, like, have you gotten anybody hooked?
Oh yeah.
That
Oh, yeah.
they're not going to. Oh,
Oh yeah,
that's
I
cool.
have some students who take my class multiple times, even though it doesn't actually count for further credits, just
Oh,
so
my
that, or they
gosh.
like audit my class. I've had local
Yeah.
comedians audit my class too. Just come sit in for the semester and do the writing prompts and workshop along with these like students.
Serenity, you're
that's
gonna be
awesome.
like, what do I want to say? You're gonna be like the pioneer of bringing all these new comics out here. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you're gonna be setting the stage for a lot of new comics, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because
Yeah.
people don't have workshops and classes here like
Yep.
that. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And we need it. I mean, I've talked about it in the past with people before, but you're actually doing it, and I think that is so cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. You know, Zach Peterson is teaching the stand-up comedy class at Backline regularly,
right?
and then Jeremy Plum taught one at Big Canvas recently too. So they, you know, there are other people doing it, but not in like a university setting, just like, and so these are people who would never have considered doing
You
comedy
have a
ever.
PhD in comedy.
Yep, I am going to have a PhD in comedy. That is
Yeah.
accurate, yeah.
Are you going to go by Dr. Serenity?
Probably.
Just use your
Probably.
first name,
Serenity
Serenity,
Dougherty,
to Dr.
PhD
Serenity.
in comedy.
Yeah.
There's already a Lincoln comedian who goes by the Doctor of Comedy, though, so I'm gonna have
that's
to be
right.
Yeah,
careful.
you have to
on
be
that.
very, you don't want to have to
Yeah.
mix any brand.
Yeah, I don't want to take anybody's brand, but yeah,
think that's
I'm
so
excited.
cool.
Yeah, right now I'm reading books. I'm in the stage where I have to read the books that are preparing me. So I have like 80 books that are on comedy in different ways. Some of them are very academic and some of them are not. They're more like autobiographical, but so I'm learning a lot about comedy right now as I read, and I'm gonna learn even more when I start doing my research in the community, and I'm really excited for it.
Well, what is like if you had to suggest 1 or 2 books to somebody watching who has nowhere to start, you know,
Yeah.
has not been to an open mic or, but, you know, wants to do it.
Yeah.
Do you have like a starter?
Oh, for sure. Like, I've been reading Ali Wong's book, Dear Girls, is excellent. And I'm just working on my way through Hannah Gadsby's 10 Steps to Nanette, also excellent. They're not like, this is how you do comedy. That's not really what they are, but they do talk about their journey through comedy, and it's really easy to see how differently everybody's journey is, or how different it is between these books. If you want something a little bit more academic, but still really great, there's, what's it called? It's like comedy and social justice activism. I can't remember what it's called. This is a great book. There's also Pretty Funny, which is like about female comedians and like their bodies and how their bodies get interpreted by the audience and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Now, I'm glad you said female comics. did you, coming up, and I think we even asked Heather this, did you find it hard being a female comic, making your way, up the ranks, up the ladder?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And because I started after Will, and after Will was gone from the area, I think it was also harder for me in that way too, because people sort of saw me as just like not serious about it. I was told multiple times I wasn't a real comedian, I wasn't actually invested in this, and it took me 2 years to get on my first book show.
You're showing them now, aren't you?
Yeah, oh yeah. For sure. Yeah, it took me 2 years to get on my first book show, and the people who I started with, and granted there weren't as many shows back then, but the people that I started with, the male comedians I started with at the same time, they were on their first book show within 6 to 8 months, whereas it took me 2 whole years to get on one.
So that brings me to the next question that I want to ask. We talk a lot about the female comics and, can you shout any out? I'm going to switch directions a little bit.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to punch in the face?
Which female comedian do I want to punch in the face? That's a good question.
You don't have to answer it, but I'm here for throwing in some wrenches.
That's what I love about you.
I was just talking about all kumbaya before the show and how everybody should get along, and now you're just trying to.
Wrench in, right? Maybe not punch in the face, but just serious bodily harm, like on something.
I don't know that there are any. I'm serious.
That's
There's
good.
not that many women in a lot, like around here now, and a lot of them are really new and young. There was a gal a few years back who.
Spill the beans, yeah. I might not even know this girl, but I want to know.
There was a gal a few years back who. She was a real estate agent and started doing comedy.
I hate her already.
Taking
my 6%.
She was very nice to me.
your
She was
commission.
always very nice to me. She was really great to me, but she did have a tendency to yell things at people while they were on stage that was really wildly inappropriate, and that's really not okay. And I feel like a lot of times she sort of undid a lot of the progress that I felt like we were making. But she's not been around for a long time, so.
Is there any guys you want to punch in the face?
Oh yeah, for sure. There's male comics I want to punch in the face. Don Seeger is at the top of my hit list.
Former
for
guest?
Sure. Yes,
Former guest,
Don
shout
Seeger. That I know everybody squashed beefs with Don, but Don and I have a lot of work to go if we're gonna ever squash beefs.
You heard it here
I don't
first.
think
We're
it's
going to get
happen.
Don and Serenity here to duke it out.
Go for it. I'm down. I'm down. I'm here for it. I would love
Do I
to
get
hear
the
him
referee?
explain
I'm
himself.
saying you can referee.
You know. Yeah.
God, funny.
It definitely, it's funny that we do have a lot of that cattiness that happens and everything. So on a more serious note, with being a woman comic, but also being somebody who started after a male comic and everything, how do you think that gave you a leg up?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd been watching Will for 2 years at that point, right? So I knew what I was doing by the time I got on stage. I think a lot of people, they get on stage and they have no idea. They're like, I don't know whether or not this is going to go well or whatever. Right. But I already had the sense of what was and was not going to be funny, and I also had realistic expectations in terms of how much work I needed to be putting in and which mics and what advice to ignore, right? Because back then, I mean, I was the only woman in Lincoln at the open mics all the time. Heather would come sometimes, which I appreciated, right? But she was in Omaha, so it's, not often she would be in Lincoln. And so I would get really bad advice from a lot of the male comics, and if I had not had the experience of being part of this scene before that, I think it could have been.
Do you think that that's intentional, or do you think?
No, no.
So I guess in that same vein, because I'm always curious, right? It's something that I think about is, how can I be more marketable to markets that wouldn't necessarily like my style or me?
Yeah.
What advice would you give male comics when they're approaching female comics about advice? What could you say to a male comic that could change his perspective when it comes to interacting with female comics, when it comes to booking them, giving advice, things like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The show that I run, I started as an answer to that question, which is I'd noticed as a woman, and I've also noticed this with black comics or gay comics, where sometimes white cishet male comedians, they'll come and they'll be like, you shouldn't do female-specific jokes. You shouldn't talk about things that only women can relate to because men can't relate to that stuff. Or they'd be like, you shouldn't do jokes about being a black man because only black people can relate to that, or gay, right? It's the same advice. I hear it lots still. And what I say is like, okay, you just don't realize how often you make jokes that are specific to white men, straight white men. Like, you just do not realize it. And so what I did was I started a show where it was primarily female performers or femme identifying performers, and then one cishet white man in drag every month. The purpose of that was for them to be presenting as female and telling the same jokes that they normally tell. It draws attention to how many times they're talking about things that are male specific and very gendered, which they're not paying attention to because it's naturalized. It seems like it's just universal humor because stand-up comedy started as a very male-centric endeavor. So,
You are very deep.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think about this stuff a lot. I do.
God, no, man, I feel like I'm like, man, like I told you, I've been here for a long time, but I love, like I said, old dog, need to learn new tricks, and hearing you speak and how the way you go about it, and just what you just saying, like, wow.
What all of us do is really amazing. It's truly beautiful, and whether or not we're aware of all the complexities of comedy, they are there, right? And we're all participating in that. And I love this like beautiful art form that's just, it's all community oriented, it's community run, it's community started. We're a self-regulating community in that way, which is why we have the dramas that we have.
Agreed, yeah.
Because we kind of need to hash them out amongst ourselves, because if we don't, there's no authority on comedy to go
There's
to,
no
right?
comedy referee.
Yeah,
like,
no.
You gotta get there to get to like a common understanding and
Yes,
common ground too, right?
exactly.
Like there's that old, I think it's James Baldwin that says something along the lines of history is everywhere within us because we take it with us. It's in everything we do, it's in our decisions, right?
Yes.
And so it's kind of in that same vein as to how we perceive the world around us. That's my experience as a cis white male, right? So you gotta kind of look around. I like that aspect.
That's the research I'm doing. That's what its application is to academia, is that like writing is very intertwined with our identity. We approach writing tasks based on who we are and what our histories are, right?
Absolutely.
And so like getting people to pay attention to that. You make these decisions for a reason. You don't just make them willy-nilly. You've got something in your brain, an experience in the past that is telling you that this is the right decision to make. Yeah. So.
I noticed, like, you know, like I said, we've been doing it for a long time, and as you say, you know, like when I first started out, I mainly did mostly black audience, you know what I'm saying? So most of my jokes was catered to the black audience. So when I started moving around to different venues, I had to write different, you know? And so even now to this day, my jokes is for everybody. Like I keep it like right in the middle. So whatever I'm saying, like you're gonna get it, you're gonna get it, you're gonna get it. I don't care if you're gay, straight, black, white, Indian, whatever, you're gonna understand because it's like right in the middle, because mainly most of my stuff is about me.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
100%. Yeah, at the core, it's about you, 100%.
But you are so deep.
Well, 'cause that's
I just love comedy.
She is
I'm a
deep,
junkie.
where
Yeah.
it's supposed to go. That's the funny part, right? Is despite the fact that we talk about how integrated we are as a community, even outside of comedy, it's still very segregated.
Oh, yeah.
We still have black rooms. We just don't call it the Chitlin Circuit anymore. It's urban room. It's black
Yeah.
room. You know what I mean?
Yep,
Like,
yep.
so it's all. I like when we can bring that diversity, because again, it gives you that exposure to let you think about things in a different fashion.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times it's not changing your jokes, which a lot of people take it as, right?
Yeah,
like,
no.
oh, I can't say this because I'm in this crowd. No, you just have to say it a little bit differently in a smarter way.
Yeah. And that's a very academic thing that you just said. Writing happens
Well, that's
in
in your
different
lane, not me.
contexts.
I'm
I'm
not
just
smart
saying.
enough
I'm
for
saying that like there's a lot of parallel between the conversations I have with comedians and the conversations I hear academics have about writing. And I think that there's a lot of places we could be talking to each other instead of separately.
I always find that interesting. Like, you know, I'll listen to like NPR and the interviews with other artists in any sort of is still informing to me as a comic.
Absolutely.
You know, whether it's music or
Perspective.
exactly.
Yep, it is.
All right, you want to tell everybody what you got going on?
Sure,
All
yeah.
the socials?
Follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I don't post a lot on TikTok, sorry. But I am active on the other ones. It's just Serenity Dougherty, at Bobina Wren, I think is my Twitter and Instagram handle. And I've got a show that I run monthly out of the Blackstone Theater. It's that gendered show. If you guys ever want to be on it, hit
Is it
me
Big
up.
Canvas, right?
Yeah,
Is
Big
it,
Canvas.
No, well, it
Yeah.
was Big Canvas. That was Blackstone
Yes,
Theater.
Blackstone.
I'll definitely hit you up.
Yeah, dude, hit me up.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
if you're comfortable wearing drag, you should hit me up. It would be very good for you. It's a lot of fun. You don't have to wear drag if you really don't want to, but I really do encourage it. I think it's a good experience.
That'd be cool.
Oh yeah.
Anything else you got coming up? Any
Yeah,
episodes?
I'm gonna be on Tiny House on the 23rd, and I'm guest hosting Sabotage at Blackstone on the 24th. So that's what. Yep.
And you host Duffy's.
Yeah,
which
I
is
run the Duffy's.
Longest. It's like historically well known.
It's been running 37 years. It's the longest running comedy open mic in the state of Nebraska, and I'm in charge of booking the hosts for it. It's every Monday at Duffy's Tavern.
That's
I'm
super
going to
dope.
host it tonight, so
Super dope.
yep. So come out to that too, and if you ever want to pop down from Omaha and guest host, you get paid $50. So it's worth it.
I'd definitely be interested.
Yeah, hit me up.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Serenity,
thank you
coming
guys for
out.
having me. This was amazing. I had a
This was fun
blast.
for me.
Man,
I feel like I went to church.
I just feel so deep.
I know, it's amazing. I feel like
Hey, I just want to say, man, thank you for another beautiful segment of Food and Laughter. Man, I want everybody to thank our guests, Serenity Dougherty, our hosts, Terrance and Heather, myself, Mr. George Zilla, man. Thank you again.
And Abelardo,
And
thank you.
Yes,
Oh,
this
that
was
was
so good.
fire.
This was so good.
Thank you for coming out, huh?
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
This is Food and Laughter.